Morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to On the Couch with me, Martin Coquelin. My guest this morning comes all the way from Denmark, and we've been working out in the pre-interview ramble when we first met, and it's about 2007 when I met Jack at the Arthur Findlay College. Since then I've worked for him and been to his school in Denmark, and it's going to be a very interesting story about how it all began for him and what he's doing now. So my guest today is Jack Eckhart. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Martin. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's lovely to be able to interview you. I know it's been in the pipeline for a while, and our busy schedules, we've just been able to get them together.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I like to ask my medium friends, because I've interviewed different types of people now, people, painters, energy working people. But one of the questions I love to ask my mediumistic friends is, how did all this start for you?
Yeah, and that's actually a very good question, because as many mediums, I've been aware of something from childhood, but basically I've been in a denial about all these things for many years. I'm a blacksmith, I'm a builder, I have a military education, so as I know you have as well, so everything so far away from this. So I've been in this total denial about all these, and my ex-wife dragged me to dams and things. I was like, oh my God, I can explain everything and all these things. But then things going on in life, and actually back years back when my mother-in-law passed away was actually where I changed my awareness.
Yes.
And during that short period of sickness of hers, I was spent a lot of time together with her, and during that time, a lot of things happened with me and around me, and my awareness changed, and I kind of started accepting that, okay, this thing I've been denied for all these years, maybe it's real. And looking back, as I said, back to the childhood, my mom have told me when I was in my early 20s that she was looking around corners after me because I was often playing alone. I was like, but I can remember I was like, what are you talking about? I was not alone. So to me, it kind of always been a natural thing. I have never worded it to anybody from childhood, because it was just like, those just my friends there.
Yes, yeah.
And that was a good time we had together. But I never worded that, oh, I've been together with so and so. It was just like a natural thing. I think because of that, anybody have never questioned it to me.
Yeah.
But I'm from a Christian, brought up in a Christian childhood as well. So I think that's many things in it. But then it started to go fast there, and I was told, oh, you should heal and you should do so and so, and I was kind of starting up a little bit with the healing and things. And when I was healing, I had some brilliant results, and I got more curious about it. And then I met a fellow friend of ours, Billy Cook, in Denmark quite a few years ago, and joining some courses with him. And then I was introduced to trance. And being introduced to trance, it was like, but I know this, I have done this for years. So I realized what I've done with the healing for quite a few years was actually the trance that I went into, but nobody was able to tell me what was going on.
Yes.
So it kind of, a big part of my development actually started before I started taking courses. In that way, during healing, during the trance state, and just sitting with meditations and things like that. And then it went fast, and then I started to go to England, to Arthur Findlay College, where we met years ago, and from there I just started to go to Folkestone, to Eastbourne, and all different kind of places. And luckily the mediumship, my development have brought me quite a bit around the world as well.
You've explained a little bit about my next question was, how did you develop? So when you went to Folkestone and Eastbourne, was that with Sheila French's school?
Yeah, in Eastbourne, it was after I've been at Eastbourne with HAGB. I was with Tim there. I have met Tim before that as well, and he was talking about this place in Eastbourne where there was 2 churches and things. Oh, that sounds interesting. So I started to go there as well.
Yeah.
And that's made a change to my mediumship as well, because it was and especially my platform work was developed quite fast there, and so thanks to especially Tim for that, because he became kind of a mentor for me for some years there as well.
Yeah, a mutual friend of ours, Tim. So you've had some really top tutors throughout your development. So
Yeah.
was there nowhere in Denmark you could develop at that time?
It's the mediumship. It was quite limited, I would say, because in Denmark, mediumship hasn't been that common. It's more being the psychic that have been coming in Denmark.
Yeah.
And it's the psychic never had my interest. It was the mediumship that's got to me. So it was limited opportunities in Denmark, and at the time, it was when there was English mediums in Denmark. That was the times where there was opportunities to look at your mediumship in a way I would like to look at it.
Yeah. Now, when you invited me over, which was a lovely weekend, we discussed the philosophy, and you're very much basing your philosophy around the principles similar to the principles that we have in England.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get your organization and recognized as a religion in spiritualism as it is in the UK. So I'm sure the listeners and the viewers would be interested, but how long a process it's been for you to try and get it recognized over there in Denmark?
The process have been quite long now. I think it's about 14 years ago. The idea was born, because I met the 7 principles and connected with the seven principles, and then I started to talk about with people. And then about 7 years ago, I had a little group together where, okay, we're going to go with this, and we started to. We had a Facebook site made and things like that, and started letting it grow. And then again, this group fall apart for different reasons. And then 2.5 years ago, we had another group put together, and we have this little group organized. We started we got a VAT number, as you need to have in Denmark too. That's the first step, and we started gathering members and things like that, because we had needed a certain amount of members before we could put in the application for the recognition.
Yeah.
And now it's 1.5 years ago we have sent in the recognition, and it's still at the ministry. So hopefully during this spring, maybe over the summer, we will have the final answer of the recognition. So it's quite a long process.
So it's growing in Denmark then, obviously, if you had to build the numbers. So
yeah.
In I mean, I've taught in 3 places now in Denmark, and I know that you know the other ladies.
Yeah.
How many organizations have you got within, how many centers, I should say, have you got within the organization?
We have our base center that's in Holbæk. That's the base, and then we are hiring halls and things around in the country. But we are doing, of course, we have a lockdown during the Corona times here, as everybody else. But otherwise, we are going around Denmark, and we have more and more mediums coming up all over Denmark, and have them. So it's really growing now, both here in Zealand, that is main island, and Fyn, Jutland, and there's some really strong mediums out there, even certificate holders, and thing that is joining now. And so it's really a treasure to see this, see it growing that way in Denmark.
And do you see it growing even bigger? Once it's recognized and it gets more recognition, do you see it growing further?
Yeah, I believe so. It's Basically, I met a lot of people in Denmark during the times that, and you probably have a bit of the same in England, but a lot of people that is like, I need something to believe. I believe in God. I believe in things like that. But the way the Church of Denmark is putting it together doesn't really fit with me. And then by presenting them for the spiritualism with the 7 principles and everything, it's like a lot of people is like coming home, like myself when I met the 7 principles. Wow, I felt like I came home now.
We say that here in the UK. Myself, especially, I like you, I had a military background, and some of my friends are wondering, what's happened to the soldier in me.
Yeah.
When I first went to a spiritualist church and I saw the 7 principles, I won't say I changed from Christianity instantly, but and a lot of my guests have said the same with you. When they turn to spiritualism, you get this is where I belong feeling, I'm coming home feeling. So yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, just made me think of a chat I had with my mom. I think it was just before I turned 20, because I was raised to be a Christian, and I had sat there and had a chat with my mom about God and things like that. I was telling my mom that, but Mom, I'm not really a believer in God as and this man sitting there with the big white bear and things like that. And I explained to her how I believed in God. And that was actually what I met many years later within the 7 principles.
Yes.
At that time, I didn't really knew what I was talking about at that time. I realized that later.
Yeah. It always surprises me, and as a tutor, and I'm sure it does you, when you talk to students and you ask them their concept of God, and they believe in God, but they don't have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
And I run a philosophy class now on Wednesday evenings when we're discussing last week the first principle, the fatherhood of God, and it was amazing how some of the class had never really thought of the relationship could build with God, because they've all got this. And I'm glad you said the guy with the white beard, because that's always the artist's interpretation of God, that he's sitting on a cloud, or in a throne, and very judgmental, rather than a loving energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It must be the same in Denmark, where people don't really have that relationship. Do you find that?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's and in Denmark, I meet a lot of people that is actually afraid of using the word God.
Yeah.
Because it's like they have put it in a box, and it's like this. It is. So it's really. I'm using the word God a lot myself, but I remember in my early days it was like God within the spiritualism. To me, it was a little hard in the start. I think a lot of people is like that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us has a Christian background, or not background, where we have another image of what is God. We have been taught, we have been learned what is God, instead of like actually have this relationship with God and define what is God for you yourself.
Yeah, and that's what I like about spiritualism. I like to call it the thinking man's religion, because a lot of the phenomena take place in your mind. But then with the 7 principles, instead of following blind, I'm not knocking Christianity. I was a Christian for over 40 years. But instead of just blindly following a faith, I find the spiritualism that you have to think about your religion. It's not just a matter of following blindly and there's dogmas and creeds. It's something you really have to think about.
Yeah, and I agree with you in that. And that's it's about. I think for me, it's about questioning it all the time. What is this? What is that? How is this working? That's how I'm working in a way, and that has been a big part of my development as a medium as well, of questioning everything.
Yeah. So when we've recorded this and it's edited and I put it online, I'm sure you're going to be sharing it so that people in Denmark can see. So if you'd like to tell them the name of your organization, but in your own language, then
Yeah.
that would be an advert for you. And I really don't mind doing that, because that's what it's about. It's about getting spiritualism out there and helping it to grow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I can, the Danish name of the organization is Dansk Spirituel Sammenslutning, og det er hjemmesiden spiritualist.dk. So yeah, it's an association in Denmark at the moment, but hopefully within a few months we have it as a religion.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're looking forward to that. You've worked so hard for it.
Yeah.
So we've talked about your organization, how you changed to spiritualism from Christianity. You've been a soldier, a builder. So now at this stage of your development, what is it that you're specializing in?
Right now, it's very much about the teaching. Most of my work is about teaching and doing some demos and services and things like that as well. But most of the time I'm working with spirit now is during teaching, and I do have some education classes that is going over 1.5 years. I've just have a little group for exams last weekend here. And I'm doing a 3 days examination. So 1 day with the theory about the mediumship, a little bit of the history and things like that. A day with sittings, doing sittings, a full day of sittings as a part of the exam, and then a day with demonstrating on platforms. So it's I teach in several aspects of mediumship as well, doing a bit of teaching in trance, because it was the trance that actually started to myself as well. And one of the things I love about the teaching is I learn so much from it myself as well. I do learn so much from my students all the time. The questions, their sometimes they have some fantastic views on things where I think, wow, I didn't think about that. That's actually brilliant. So it's as I said, it's a big part of my continuous development as a medium as well.
One of the things to give you a pat on the back, one of the things I enjoyed when I came over, you asked me to come and do a philosophy weekend.
Yeah.
I was really impressed in the standard and the quality of the philosophy. We did several exercises, and the students were certainly up on par with the students in England, not better than some of them. The philosophy was wonderful.
Yeah.
So we're coming towards the end of the interview, Jack, and I'm going to ask you the question that I've asked all the mediums. My wife, when she interviewed me, asked me the same question. If you're going to give somebody some advice that's had similar experiences to yourself, wants to come into spiritualism, or to start practicing mediumship, what advice would you give them?
Because of how things are in Denmark, I think my best advice would be critical. Ask questions, question everything. I'm still doing it all the time, to an extent that people sometimes ask me, do you really believe in what you're doing, because of the questions I'm putting on myself all the time. And I think, to me, I've probably been one of the great benefits for me in my development, that, okay, maybe Martin says so and so, and that makes sense, but I'm not quite sure. I have to check it. I need to have evidence for, is it really like that? It's not that I don't trust Martin because I do, but I need to have my own evidence, because that's the way I work. And because I see a lot like what they have said 20 years ago, it's just been said on again and again, and everybody's just saying the same thing. Nobody's ever questioning it. And I think that's brings a limitation into the mediumship. Instead of when we are questioning, we can actually raise the standard of the mediumship.
Yeah, I don't like to follow blindly, and very much like you, even when I'm teaching now, I love to listen to the students, but I tell them now to have their own individual mediumistic experiences, whether it's through the philosophy, trance mediumship, healing mediumship, or the communication mediumship from the platform. I try to encourage students not to have my experience, though I give them my experience, of 24 years, which is quite short compared to some people. But I give them my experiences, but then I encourage them to question it and have their own experiences.
Yeah.
Do you do that yourself?
Yeah, I do, and also I said to my students, don't try to become me, don't try to become Jack, don't try to become Tim, don't try to become Martin. Be your own. And I can quite proudly say that the group I have had for through examinations this weekend, that over these last 1.5 years, they have developed their own style of mediumship.
Yeah, and that's lovely to see. I think when you see your students blossoming, and they're not blossoming, and they're not trying to emulate you, but they're doing what you ask them to do.
Yeah.
But in their own style.
Exactly.
With their own experiences. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So Jack, sadly we've come to an end. It's been lovely to see you again. It hasn't been that long since I was in Denmark.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for being on the couch with me this morning.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
So,
ladies and gentlemen, once again, you've been on the couch with me, Martin Coklef, and my guest, Jack Eckhart, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.